Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, the podcast where I ask the people in comedy about comedy. You know, comedy is like the universe's big awkward dinner party. You trip over the rug, spill the wine and insult the host, but everyone laughs and you're invited back anyway. Yes, for some people a bad day is just a bad day, but for a comedian, a bad day is new material. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 1,500 comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. If you like to hear what comedians have to say as much as I do, then please like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is an actor and writer, as well as a comedian on the rise, who's bringing her debut hour to this year's Edinburgh Fringe. A joyful and energetic comic, she's also a broadcaster who hosted the show Bleeding Hell on BBC Radio Wales. It's stand-up comedian Bella Humphries. Was comedy sort of an early influence on you? How far back do you remember it?
Weirdly, it actually wasn't. It was never something that I planned to do. It was never something I thought, oh, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a comedian. Like some people they sort of watch stand-up their whole lives and are like, yes, that is it. But for me, actually, it was something I sort of fell into by accident. And I always liked it. I always watched comedy on telly and stuff, like, you know, Mock the Week and things when I was growing up. But that was probably most of my kind of access to stand-up. It wasn't something I'd seen a lot of. I think I probably watched Michael McIntyre when I was in my teens. But yeah, it was very much sort of not on my radar. And until I was probably in my late teens, early 20s, that was when, probably my early 20s actually, was when I really kind of got into it.
Yeah. Because you were initially an actor.
I was initially an actor, and I trained in that. I trained in musical theatre for basically my whole life, like straight out the womb. I was on the stage and I was doing all of that. And yeah, that was what I really, really, really wanted to do. And that was what my main focus was. And if I'm being honest, for a long time, until I discovered stand-up, I actually was one of those people that was like, yes, well, I want to be a serious actor. I want people to take me seriously. And I don't know what that is about me. I just wanted people to take me seriously. But then I went to the Edinburgh Festival in 2014, I think it must have been. 2014? Or 2013, it may have been. One or the other. I was about 19 when I went. And I was doing a play. I was doing a kids' play. And I was at the Three Sisters. It was my venue. It was in a yurt at 11 o'clock in the morning. And there was always sick in the yurt because of the stuff from the night before. And because I was there, I watched loads of comedy and I watched loads of stand-up. Yeah. And that was what sort of made me go, oh, this is pretty cool. I quite like that.
So being a serious actor, did you play like comedic roles? But obviously you play them dramatically, but obviously were they humorous roles? Did you see the humor sort of seep in slowly in that direction?
I mean, yeah, definitely. And then also I always found that, I mean, I'm 5 foot. I am not the sort of classic ingenue kind of look. I've got a nose piercing. I've got a bob. And I would always get put up for saying I've got a bob as well. That sounds really a weird thing to say, but basically in acting and especially musical theatre, long hair on girls is like the go-to. Everybody's got like, you know, hair down to their belly buttons and it's blonde and it's beautiful. And I've got, you know, quite dark, really curly hair. And I was just never this like, I was never going to be the leading lady. And so I found once I hit my teens, definitely, I was getting put up for the funny best friend a lot. And I think once I found comedy, then I was like, yeah, that tracks. That tracks. And that's something I can do, actually.
But anyone who would desire to do so would have seen you in like Billy Elliot in the West End and things like that.
They would have, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably wouldn't have known it was me because it was a very long time ago. I was about 11 when I did that. But yeah, that was my first kind of big job, I guess. I peaked really at age 11. I've never done anything better.
But what I mean by that is that as an aspiring actor, you've already been on the West End. You've been on the BBC. You know, you've done stage and screen quite early on.
Yes, I did. I did it sort of very early on, and then it's like, well, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Unless you know, there were certain of my peers that then did, you know, they were working a lot. They were kind of, you know, really doing well. I did a few things and that was sort of it. And then, you know, just trying always to, you know, get in the room for things, do more stuff, be seen. And I am really impatient as a person, and I like projects. So I really love like making my own work and stuff. So I think getting into stand-up was very much a kind of, oh, I've got a creative itch I need to scratch. What can I do?
Yeah.
And it was that.
So that first gig then, was it everything you expected it to be?
Well, no. It wasn't everything I expected it to be, but it was better than I expected it to be. Like I didn't sort of crumble. So I was quite impressed with myself. You know, I got up there, I did the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There was a few laughs, nothing, you know, we're not, you know, getting applause breaks on our first 5, but it, you know, I got through it. It went well, and it was good enough that I went, oh, okay, yeah, I want to do that again. Actually,
yeah. Did you have like the nerves and anxiety for starting out something new?
Did I? Did I ever? Yes, I did, and it's something I still get now. It's never left me. Almost every gig I do, I sit there beforehand and go, why? Why did I do this? Why am I doing this? Everyone's going to hate it. And then you get on stage and then it's all gone.
Did you have a sort of in mind a style that you would have? Did you have specific inspirations that influenced that?
I love and have always loved since I first really sort of started liking stand-up, and actually was a real impetus for me to give it a go. And Sarah Pascoe, I love her. I think she's amazing. And I remember I watched a really early preview of Lads that she did. I watched it at, I want to say, the Four Thieves in Battersea. And it was very off, like by chance that I got a ticket for it. And I just watched it and I went, oh my God, that is what I want to do. That is so cool. And so kind of, because I'd seen comedy before and I've just been like, oh, it's just jokes, isn't it? Like, it's just people being funny. But I was like, that just spoke to me on a level of being like, I want to do that. I want to say something with my comedy. I want to, you know, I want to use my voice in a way that people will listen and maybe is a bit, maybe a bit different.
Yeah.
And especially seeing a woman do that as well. I mean, obviously this was quite a few years ago, and it is definitely different now.
Yeah.
Not as much as we'd like, but it's definitely different. But yes, I definitely just seeing her just standing up there and just saying this stuff that, you know, wasn't always nice and wasn't always that people would say, oh, she's a bit much, or she's a bit loud, or she's a bit crass, or she's a bit this. And I was like, yeah, I love that actually.
Yeah. So when we see you performing on stage, how much of that is you? Is that a version of you? Is that a character that the actor in you is playing? Are you being like a mini Pascoe on stage, or is it something else?
I'm going to say to you, it's me on my best day. It's me. It is me. I feel like what I talk about is almost 99% truth. To my detriment. It is very much often just everything I've got in my head just coming out. And yeah, so it's very much, I guess, like a slightly heightened best version of me. Like, it's the most confident version of myself, because I don't feel always in life that I'm that confident, but on stage I do feel that, and I feel like I can be really authentic, which feels really nice.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, it's not a character at all. It's very much, if you come and speak to me afterwards, pretty similar. So if you don't like me on stage, you probably won't like me as a person.
So you mentioned Edinburgh there. So how was that experience of the festival in general, and how do you feel about the Fringe as a whole?
I mean, it was so amazing. I'd never done anything like that before the first time I did it. And I was just, I guess I didn't even, it sounds ridiculous because it's got its hold over every waking moment of my life. And it has done for the last few years. But when I was sort of 19 and I was, trained to be an actor and I was, doing all this stuff, I was just like, I don't even know what this is. This sounds a bit fun, doesn't it? And I got there and I was just like, oh my God, this is like the best thing I've ever been to. And it was my first proper time away from home and it was just incredible. And I was like, look at all these amazing things in the same place. And everything was just so different. And I'd never seen so many kind of things that were so original and just, you could see people at the absolute top of their game, but then also people just starting out and then sort of everything in between and just, stuff that you'd never ever even think was going to be a thing. You can see that at the Fringe. Do you want to see somebody, doing jokes about dogs while riding a penny farthing? Probably that'll probably be at Edinburgh. They'll have a space somewhere.
But how has the attitude changed? Because obviously this year you're taking up your show Square Peg. So going up there early on and now going up there as a comedian making their debut, I mean, that's very different things, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it feels awful. I wish I could bottle the excitement that I had at 19 for this just new, exciting experience and just give that to myself now, because as much as I do have that in me and I'm really drilling into myself, like, enjoy this. You are so lucky. You are in such a privileged position that you get to do this. This is honestly like such an honor to be able to do it.
Yeah.
That because I know not everyone can. And don't get me wrong, it's been a struggle and I will not be doing it next year. But it is just, I wish I could, definitely. I'm really trying to see it as an exciting opportunity and not something to sort of beat myself with and be like, you need to do better. Like, this is the be all and end all, because it's not. It's just comedy, isn't it? It's just making jokes at the end of the day. And it's such an exciting opportunity, but it can feel really all consuming. And especially with the whole idea around debuting being such a pressure on people. And I think occasionally I've definitely found this, it can take the fun out of it.
But also you say it's just comedy, but obviously comedians these days will have to have a message, have to have a story to tell.
Oh, well, of course, yes.
So what is your message? Tell me about the show. Tell me what the audiences can expect.
Well, my show is called Square Peg. It's about not fitting in. It's about feeling like, well, for me, it's kind of like feeling like I'm the square peg in my own life. Like, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. It's about moving away to somewhere that you don't know, feeling like an outsider in the place that you live. It's about fitting in with your family. It talks about my family, my kind of not so normal family. I'm one of 7. We go into that in the show. And then also but the overarching storyline and kind of thing that I'm talking about is being diagnosed with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is a premenstrual endocrine condition, which is something that I've had ever since I was 14, but I only discovered or got diagnosed with it 3 years ago, and sort of how I've come to terms with what that means and how I live with it. And and trying to find some funny stuff in it. Because it's pretty debilitating as a disorder and it's quite sad. So trying to find the funny in that and make light of something that is so rubbish. Because if you can't do that, then like if I can't make fun of it and if I can't laugh at it, then honestly, like I will just burst into tears.
But I mean, obviously, I've never heard of this, and would have had no reason to, realistically. So,
no, of course not.
For audiences coming to see you, how do you make them understand something which might be so unfamiliar, perhaps?
So I do I go into it a lot in the show about exactly what it is, but then I also talk a lot about how it makes me feel. So, and kind of try and liken that to things that they might understand or they might have experienced.
Yeah.
And also go through some of the signposts, some of the like the key kind of symptoms, which actually like a lot of people might be experiencing, because I didn't actually realize that I was experiencing it until I'd read about it online. And a friend of mine who has PMDD had written an article that was on the Mind website, and I read it and I went, oh my God, that's me. I've got that. I bet I've got that. And I did.
Yeah.
And I'd always felt all of these different things, but seeing them all together being like, oh, if you've got this and this and this and this, those together, that makes this thing. And I think it's something that there's a lot of stigma around periods in general, and there's a lot of shame around them. And because it also affects your mental health, there is a lot of, there's a lot of secrecy around that still, I think, and sort of not being able to, well, I definitely found I've given up on it now, but not asking for help or not being honest about how I'm feeling for fear of seeming weak. And definitely, it's very much a thing that lots of people could be experiencing it, but they just don't have the language to talk about it. So it feels very important and just really nice to be able to be that voice that goes up there and go, oh yeah, isn't it really awful? Like how, you want to kill yourself every month. By the way, that isn't normal, but if it is how you feel, there is sort of something you can do about it. Because I'm not scared to talk about that anymore, and I know a lot of people are, and so it kind of feels kind of freeing, Yeah, it's like saying all the worst bits about yourself and being like, ha ha ha, this doesn't have any hold on me anymore, because I can just tell rooms full of strangers about this, but also at the same time make them laugh. Which is, pretty great.
So again, you talked about the stress of making your debut. So which came first, the story you wanted to tell, or you started with the jokes and threaded them into a narrative?
Well, I think the story that I wanted to tell had been there, but it wasn't until I decided to do my debut show that I went, oh, okay, that if I'm going to talk about anything, that's what I'd like to talk about. Because I had been for a little bit before doing some jokes about it, but when you're doing a Club 20, it's not really an easy thing to talk about, because it's too it's not ideal, it's not. I wouldn't say that's what stag and hens want to hear about, Whereas it's a really nice opportunity when you get given like the hour to do, to be able to, you can go more into depth into things. You have the luxury of time, to sort of, have little bits where you're kind of, maybe you are just doing a bit more storytelling, or you are just doing a bit more narrative, rather than being like joke. And there are bits that are like that, but then it just gives you you get the peaks and troughs, which you haven't got the time to do when you're doing a shorter set.
When you've done the show, your new show as works in progress, do you find that people want to come up and talk to you about it afterwards?
Yes, quite a lot. It in good and bad ways. I have I do talk about it quite a lot online, and so I do have some people that follow me because I talk about it. So other people that have PMDD. I've done a radio program about it in the past, and I got quite a lot of followers off the back of that, you know, sort of found me and my stand-up because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so often they will come to my works in progresses, and so they often do want to talk to me about it afterwards, which is honestly just so nice. It's so lovely, and it makes me, if it's a really look, doing works in progresses aren't fun, okay? They're not fun. It's like failing in front of a crowd, and nobody wants to do that. And you know, it has to get rubbish before it gets better. You know, lots of the first times you say things are on stage.
Yeah.
So hearing then somebody coming to watch it because they had an actual interest in it, because it's something they personally experience, yeah, that makes a real kind of difference. And it also makes me think, oh yeah, it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
Because I have questioned quite a few times if this is something people want to hear about. Somebody described it the other day as, and not in a bad way, he said. He did say, he was like, this is not in a bad way, but it is the most I've ever heard about periods in one sitting. Which fair.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I don't think, he's not wrong. But yeah, I found that incredibly funny. And I was like, do you know what, mate? It's a really fair comment.
But again, in fairness, because, and you said this yourself, that's not something that people talk about. In fact, if quite the opposite, because in the structure of comedy, such as it is, if women talk about periods all the bloody time, it's the sort of thing that people believe, which I can't say I've ever experienced women spending hours talking about periods. And I see hundreds of female comics.
Exactly.
Although in this instance, of course, you are.
I mean, yeah, this show very much. If somebody if you'd only ever seen me, if I was the only female comedian you'd ever seen, sure, you've got every right to say they only ever talk about periods, because yeah, I do actually. But I do have a bit in my show sort of addressing that, and about how that's something that I come across a lot, is people saying about, oh, it's like so hack talking about your periods and stuff like that. And yeah, and I've got a lot of thoughts and feelings about it, but if you want to hear them, come to the show.
Yeah, quite right. And in fairness, just to close out on this point, I would know nothing of this if I hadn't come to see your show, so I wouldn't even be aware of it. So obviously it isn't being talked about enough.
No, exactly.
So now that you've got this hour within which you can sort of flex up in the time and have time to really go into depth, do you find yourself more comfortable in that position, or are you happier as an actor, as a writer, or doing those club sets?
This has been the best experience, being able to do an hour.
Yeah.
It's definitely the aspect of comedy I like.
Mm.
I do like doing clubs. I'm not really a club comic, to be honest. That's not my vibe at all. I'm just not suited to it, I don't think. My style isn't suited to it. I can do it, but I don't enjoy it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, having this hour and having this time to kind of spread out a bit more and kind of go into more things and, I guess delve into slightly deeper stuff is definitely, for me, something that is more exciting and more enjoyable, definitely, as a performer. Yeah, and I'd be sort of interested to sort of see how I feel after Edinburgh. But definitely at the moment, I'm really, really enjoying the kind of, the freedom, I think it is, more than anything.
Yeah.
And also as well, because I guess when you're doing like club gigs and stuff, it's like it does always feel like you have a responsibility to be good to somebody else, whoever's like paying your wage, like the booker, the club, whoever. Whereas when it's just me, it's only me. Like, I'm sort of like I don't have a producer. I don't have anyone kind of, doing my show. Like, it's me. I'm making the show happen. So I don't really, other than my director and stuff, I don't really kind of owe anybody my, nothing. I don't owe anyone anything. Like, I'm doing the show for me because I want to do it.
Yeah.
And that feels so freeing and so nice. And also just like, you know, if it's a bit crap, which I'm really hoping it isn't, that is on me. Like, that's on me and me alone.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to square that with yourself, I find. And then also, you know, I feel like I can take more risks and be more genuinely, authentically myself and how I want to be on stage, because I don't feel like I owe anything to anybody. So
Yeah.
no one's expecting anything of me.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows who I am. So I can just go out there and be like, this is me. This is what you get. Like,
Yeah.
basically take it or leave it.
But do you also though have like a competitive streak? Because you sound, when you're talking now and in responses to these questions, you sound sort of very humble, I guess is the word. But you're going to the Fringe to compete with hundreds of other comedy shows, thousands of other shows across the Fringe. You'll be competing for audiences' attention. Do you have a competitive streak in you?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Like, absolutely. And I don't think I could be in this industry still if I didn't.
Mm.
But I think that, yeah, obviously I would love for people to come. I want people to see the show. I don't want it to be like, no, you know, just, I'm not going there to do it to nobody. Of course I want people to come. I just think what I'm trying to be is realistic, because I know it is the biggest arts festival and I am competing against a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to not set myself up for failure. So and I think it's very easy to do that. I'm not the best comedian. I'm not. I know that not by a long stretch. And this is only my first show. And as much as I'm desperate for it to be amazing, of course I am. I wouldn't be lying if I said I wasn't. I know this isn't going to be my best show ever, because I'd hope by the time I got onto my third, my fourth, my fifth, obviously I've had more experience, so they'll be better. So yeah, I really, really want it to be amazing, and I want people to come and watch it. And I'm just trying not to put too much pressure on myself, because I know that will actually be a hindrance rather than a help.
Right.
I've seen people in the past, especially doing their debuts, really ruin their experience by focusing too much on the aspect of being like, what's everybody else doing? And I've paid so much money to do this. I want to give it everything I've got, and I really want to do it for myself.
Yeah.
Because I think otherwise it would be a real waste.
Yeah. So what about those other people that are doing their shows? Do you go and watch other comedians perform?
Oh my gosh, of course. Yeah, I've got loads of friends doing it, especially doing their debut this year.
Yes.
So yeah, and when I first started doing comedy, I lived in London. Then I lived in North Wales, so I was doing a lot of stuff in Manchester, and now I live in Cardiff. So I've traveled around a lot. So I've made lots of friends and know a lot of people in lots of different circuits.
Yeah.
And I would like to see all of their shows if I can, because it's so nice to be able to, see the people that and like, because they're all different. And especially with like a lot of my female friends, it is quite rare that a lot of us are on the same bill together. It does happen, of course. It's not, this isn't the 80s, but it is less common that I'm sort of on the same bill as them, especially now as, as you move around and you're doing different stuff, and, everybody, especially when you're all at a similar level as well.
Yeah.
You're not going to be on the same bill, really, because if you're all openers, there's only one opener. Do you know what I mean? It's rare that you're going to be all on the same bill. Yeah, so it'll be so nice to sort of, see them all. I just want to, just see loads of stuff while I'm there, because I think that's something that I often forget to do, is watch comedy. Because, you can just get so busy and so hyper-focused on doing your own thing that you sort of forget that you like comedy.
Yes. Yeah.
And that you like watching comedy. If you know what I mean. So yeah, oh my God, I want to get out and watch as much as possible.
Yeah.
And also some random stuff. I would like to be flyered by a random, an a cappella group, maybe not that, but
Do you find that you still watch comedy with the same eye, or do you watch it with a comedian's eye now?
Yeah, I don't watch it with the same eye anymore.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I still enjoy it, definitely.
Yeah.
But sometimes in my head, rather than just laughing, sometimes I can just be like, oh, that was really good.
Mm.
Or I'll be like, oh, that didn't go where I thought it was going to go. I thought the punchline was going to be X, Y, or Z. I thought it was going to be that.
Yeah.
But they went a different way. And yeah, so I feel like it. I found this as well when I was working as an actor, especially when I worked in telly.
Mm.
I can't watch telly in the same way anymore because I can picture everybody that's behind the camera.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely feel it's the same for watching comedy now, but still very enjoyable.
Yeah. Does that worry you, that doing comedy and and all the stresses that your debut has brought on you, and now seeing comedy in a different way, does it ever worry you that it's taken the shine off it? It's lost the magic a little bit?
I mean, I guess there is an aspect of that.
Yeah.
There is definitely a sort of, a kind of different feeling of it
Mm.
that you get when, obviously if you're just somebody that loves comedy,
Yeah.
and when you first start out doing, when you're an open mic comic,
Yeah.
it does feel different. It is, I'm not going to say more enjoyable, because actually I didn't like that part of it. I hate, well, no, I did. I liked aspects of it, and I liked the kind of the doing it, like the social aspect of it, and I
Yeah.
like doing all that. But there is something about when you do well, when you have got better,
Hmm.
that's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
That's a lot more enjoyable when you kind of, and when you can feel, and you kind of, you like reap the benefits and the rewards of your own hard work.
Yes.
That feels really nice. And as much as I do treat it a lot more like a job now than obviously I did when I first started out,
Mm.
it is still something I love. I'm not, sitting on a computer filling out spreadsheets. I'm on stage telling jokes that I've written. People are watching me, they're listening, they're laughing.
Yeah.
And I will never get over how good that is.
Mm. You talked about obviously where you've moved and to live and work around the country. Do you find that your comedy is received differently, or you have to alter your comedy to depending on where you're performing?
That is a good question. I find generally stuff I talk about, it tracks everywhere.
Hmm.
But I have a lot of jokes about Wales at the moment, and there are bits that definitely, and some bits about the Welsh language I have, and they definitely work better in a place that understands the Welsh language. But they also work, I think, for an English speaker.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I think because what I talk about is like quite personal. It doesn't really sort of tie geographically to a place
Yeah.
particularly, and it's my observation of the things, rather than it being like I do talk about being an English person quite a lot, just because I still live in Wales, but when I lived in the north of Wales especially,
Hmm.
because it is so Welsh speaking, and it is quite like, I live in Cardiff now, which is a city, it's a university place, like there's loads of people from everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas when I lived in North Wales, it was quite an insular community, and it was very obvious that I was from the outside. I wasn't one of them. Um, and so, yeah, that kind of those things. And I did find, when I gig in North Wales, especially, they love hearing about themselves. They love hearing about their own community.
Yeah.
But then I guess, doesn't everyone,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things, I think.
Everyone loves their local reference, don't they?
They do, yeah. People love local references. Whenever I gig in Swindon, which is my hometown, they love the local references.
I remember Sean Locke once. I saw him perform in Dorking, and if anyone has ever been to the town, I looked around as if they were all here. If any one of you has ever
Yeah, I
looked
know.
at,
Oh my god.
hey, gather around, guys.
We're talking about you.
If anyone's ever been to the town of Dorking, you'll know that there is a massive statue of a cockerel on the outside of town. So Sean Locke just had to say massive cock, and he got like 20 minutes out of that, and it wasn't even a dick joke. It was just literally talking about the statue of the town. But because it was the reference point, the local reference point, they loved it, and he just kept going and going and going and going until until he couldn't think of a single one thing to say. And if you've ever met Sean Locke, you'll know that it takes a long time for him to run out of things to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's definitely like local things that you can pull in. Although I will say, as a pointer for anybody out there, if you gig in Swindon, don't bitch about the magic roundabout, okay? Because what you will get is a middle-aged man going, oh, well, what you've got to do is you've got to take every single roundabout as if it was an individual roundabout. And I can guarantee you that person will be my dad. Yeah.
Do you think there's a single important lesson that you've learned so far that sort of informs your act, your philosophy going forward?
Oh my gosh, that is a very big question. Probably, I'm sure there is. I guess that probably a big thing that I've learnt
Mhm.
is that not everyone is going to like you,
Mhm.
and you can twist yourself into knots trying to get people to like you,
Yeah.
and then you just end up being this kind of horrible twisted version of what you once were, and it's not very nice and it doesn't feel great. And yeah, of course, like I would love it if I was, everybody thought I was amazing and everyone loved me, and I do get jealous of people that do seem to have more mass appeal than I do. But I've tried so hard to learn that the people that like you are going to like you. The people that care about what you're talking about, or that find that stuff funny, they'll find you eventually. If you just keep going, keep being true to yourself, and keep talking about what you want to talk about in the way that you do it.
Yeah.
Because I've tried in the past to be different on stage, and I don't enjoy comedy as much when I do that. And so you can try and desperately beg everyone to like you by being what you think they want you to be.
Yeah.
Or you can just do what you like. And yeah, maybe your crowds will be smaller for a while. But if you don't enjoy it, what the hell is what is the point? Like, comedy is just not a thing that you want to be doing if you hate it. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because it's not a very fun lifestyle sometimes,
Do you have targets that you set for yourself or for your show? Do you have sort of things that you want to be able to achieve or have done in a certain period of time?
So one target was so I turned 30 this year, and this was the year I wanted to do my first hour. I was like, by the time I'm 30, I want to have done my first hour.
Yeah.
And so that's good. Achieved that. Well, we say that. Not done it just yet, but the way we're going, I think I'll manage it. I think I did have, I had certain things up until this point.
Yeah.
Of I wanted to, when I wanted to book my first 20, I wanted to get my first paid gig, I wanted to do my first tour support, I wanted to do my first this, my first that. And then I think I got as far as this, and then I was like, oh yes, quite a lot, isn't it, actually? And I think I've been so focused on actually writing the show and doing the show, I've sort of, I've stopped. I haven't got too many goals after, but I'm sure there will be some that I will then set, because I do like to have, I like lists that I can tick off, tick, done it. That makes me feel good, But yeah, I'm sure there will be some.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to go and take it next year and take it around all the other festivals.
Yes.
As a finished show, rather than a work in progress. That would be really good. Yeah. And I guess sort of take it around so that people that didn't come to Edinburgh can see it. But other than that, I think at the moment I'm trying to get to the end of this goal, because it's quite a big one.
So what so far then have been the best and worst moments in comedy that you had?
The worst moment probably, well, there's just been so many, actually, just so many. Just asking myself, why are you doing this? Like, what is the point? You're not very good. Yeah, just coming off just loads of times. I had probably about maybe 6 months where I was just really bad. And it was fairly recent as well. Like, I'm talking post-pandemic. And I was just coming off stage and I was just so underwhelmed. And just like, it was just like, oh, like, why are you pushing so hard with this? Like, why are you saying no to like loads of social events to go to Macclesfield and do 10 minutes on a Tuesday night? Like, you're clearly not very good. So like, just stop. Like, this, it feels like a waste. But that ended, thankfully. But that was a really long period of time where I was just like, everyone else around me is doing so well. Everyone else I know is doing amazingly. And it just feels like a bit of a pipe dream that this would ever be something that I would do, or like, that I would be doing continually. And yeah, just really bogged down in that I was basically just rubbish. And I was, like, I really, really was. So yeah, that was a real low. But a real highlight for me was I did tour support for Kiri Pritchard McLean on her tour last time, on her Home Truths tour, and that was just being able to support somebody that I've always really loved their comedy. Like, I've always loved her stuff. Yeah. And she also was very kindly mentored me for about a year. Sort of around the 6-month bad time. She mentored me for about a year, and she just was so helpful. And then to be able to then sort of do all of that work with her, and for her to then ask me to do tour support for her, that was just like, it just felt like such a privilege, and such a kind of like, I don't think she would have asked me if she didn't think I was good. So then that was a real highlight. And to be able to go and do gigs where, they're not even there to see me, but they still were. She has the loveliest crowds. They are the nicest audiences, and just, super lovely. And what a highlight, really great. And that was like, it just felt like, oh yeah, I'm doing it. Like, this is what I wanted. Like, this is why I carried on. This is why I persevered.
Yeah.
And yeah, felt super cool.
Yeah. You mentioned the pandemic there a minute ago. Apart from the obvious, how much impact do you think that break had on your willingness to do comedy, your ability to do it, or your attitude towards it, do you think?
I actually completely gave up before the pandemic. I stopped doing comedy in 2019 when I went to drama school for the second time. I went to go and do a master's in acting for screen in London. And I just thought, you know what, like, you're not doing too well in London doing the open mic scene. It's fun, it's great, but you're not, like, I don't think you're going to make it as a comedian. So I was going back to drama school, and it was really intense. My hours were so long. I just didn't have the energy to do stand-up anymore. I just thought, well, this is going to be really great. You're going to graduate at this drama school, and it's going to be amazing. And spoiler alert, the pandemic happened, and graduated in the pandemic, and basically didn't end up doing very well as an actor. And so yeah, I'd given up for that, basically that whole year before the pandemic. I did maybe one gig in the pandemic on Zoom, hated it, and thought, yeah, you made the right choice, actually. That was really good you stopped. And then I started again. Can't remember when, but yeah, after the pandemic had happened. And I think having that break to reevaluate what I wanted out of it, and knowing what I didn't want, that was incredibly helpful, because I think I'd got very bogged down in, I think the London open mic scene is quite difficult. It's very oversaturated, and it can feel quite difficult to progress if you're not getting out of London very much.
Yeah.
And it can feel a bit of a rat race, and it can feel a real kind of, it can feel very cliquey. And I didn't enjoy that aspect of it. And I think getting out and then moving to somewhere completely different, and also moving somewhere that was not connected to anywhere. Like, I lived about an hour and a half drive from Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
And so to do comedy, I had to really want to do it.
Yeah.
I had to, if I wanted to do a gig, I had to really want it, because I had to drive for an hour and a half, spending a lot of my own money to, you know, get out, get to gigs, and having that break to really reflect on what it was I wanted and what I wanted out of it. And then also to realize that I did miss it when I wasn't doing it. And not just because it had been taken away because everything was closed, but because I'd made that conscious decision beforehand to stop.
Yes.
That really was that was, I think, actually really helpful for me. And it gave me a new, it's like kind of lease of life, I guess, to be like, yeah, let's give it another go. And here I am now.
So how can we find out about you and where we can come and see you performing?
You can follow me online if you want to come and see my stuff. Mainly on Instagram, it's hella.humphries, my name, but the two front letters switched around because I used to work in a school and I didn't want anybody to find me. And then I'd had that handle for long enough that I thought probably should keep it. And I'm on TikTok as well. I do that. I'm trying to do TikTok. It's very hard. I don't understand it as a platform. It's very confusing. All these people see it, but they don't follow you. It's like shouting just into the middle of nowhere. It's very confusing. But I do a lot of videos on there talking about PMDD, which is obviously what my show is about. So if you want to hear more about that, then I'm doing a series on there. But yeah, sort of online, you can find basically all of, I have a link tree on there, and that kind of links to all of the things that I'm doing. And
so last question then, Bella, how would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Comedy in a nutshell, oh my gosh. For me personally, comedy is the most exciting way to express myself, and also just such, I think, a huge agent for discussion and bringing people together. I love doing gigs where it is multiple groups in a room that they've got nothing in common, but by the end of the night they are united as one. And it's just amazing, because they could be, you know, they could be anybody, but they're all finding joy in that common denominator of comedy. And for me, that's what comedy is in a nutshell, and I love it.
Thank you, Bella. It's been an absolute joy talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.